Hello Enki Jazz fans, and welcome to the fourth of our special Manchester Jazz Festival editions of the Enki Jazz podcast. Today I have the great pleasure of chatting to the incredible vocalist and composer Lauren Kinsella. It was an absolute pleasure chatting to Lauren. We chat about a whole spread of things, from her life and career in music to her Irish heritage and her writing, to a few of her lesser known projects that you may not be familiar with. So please sit back and enjoy the chat with Lauren Kinsella. Hello Lauren Kinsella, and welcome to the Enki Jazz podcast. How are you keeping?
Thanks, Karen. I'm keeping well. Yes, nice to be chatting to you today.
Yeah, a pleasure. And so, just for anyone who may be watching and is unfamiliar with you and your work, could you give us a very brief overview of who you are and what you do, please?
Yeah, sure. So, like you said, my name is Lauren Kinsella, and I am an Irish vocalist living in London, and I've been here now nearly 10 years. Which is mad to think about it like that. And I write music, perform music, teach music, and I work in different ensembles with original composition and improvisation. And text plays an important part of my role as a musician. So whether I'm writing it or I'm working with other people who are using text in their practice. So yeah, that's what keeps me busy. Basically, finding a place for the voice in contemporary music.
Beautiful, thank you. And just before we delve into music and yourself a bit more, just how have you been finding the joys of isolation and lockdown and all that? Are you keeping positive? Are you keeping active? Are you keeping musically engaged?
Yes, I think it's been a time where I've felt immensely grateful for being able to stay safe and stay at home in where I live, and I again feel very grateful for being able to work from home where I am. So I've been writing music, and I've been teaching music, and kind of getting to grips with online teaching, so becoming more familiar with all the portals. And yeah, the exchange of practice and dialogue and ideas, and just keeping in touch with people. So that's been a really important part.
Fantastic.
Of the last few weeks. Yeah.
And so I wanted to ask you first of all, you're definitely an artist who's very connected with their roots and their identity and their nationality and all that, as we'll see when we chat about it, a couple of projects coming up. But leads me to then ask the question. Obviously, you came over to the UK, I think initially to study for your master's degree down at Royal Academy, or maybe you moved over prior to that. You can correct me in a second if I'm wrong. But how come you decided to stick about? What was it about London and the UK? Because obviously Ireland has a thriving arts and music scene. Maybe not so much in the jazz world as much as London, certainly. But when you feel such a connection to that past and that lineage, what was the decision to stay in the UK based upon?
I don't think I ever set out to be in London for a certain amount of time. I think when I moved in 2010, I did the masters in 2012. So when I arrived, I was just doing some teaching, and I kind of took a while to find my feet, and to feel comfortable just with living in London and just being in a new, big, unfamiliar kind of city,
Yeah.
So I think that for me, what stands out is the connection that I have with musicians and friends who live here, and you kind of start to build that around yourself and your identity and your practice. And I think that's always been something for me that's not kept me here, but that's made me happy here. So if it's going to gigs or listening to recordings or meeting new students in in colleges, new colleagues. There's always just new ideas have always been emerging about collaborations or working together with people. But I don't see that it's not just about being in London, but I think it's just the practice of being in improvised music in general. And there is a big, family of people in Ireland, and, of course in Europe as well. And a project that I'm involved in at the moment is called Romer, and it's with a couple of Irish musicians who live in different parts of the world. So the bass player is an amazing bass player and guitarist, Simon German. He lives in New York at the moment. And then Matthew Halpin, who's a great tenor player, he lives in Cologne. And then Matthew Jacobson, a great drummer, he lives in Ireland. And we kind of got together to work on compositions that we were making together, and then we did some gigs. And I think regardless of where I am or what city I am in, there's an incredible pool of musicians and artists who are working in contemporary music, and that's always the draw for me,
Yeah.
And then just while I've been here, then I've been able to establish more areas of work in my own practice. And now I can't believe that I've been here 10 years.
Flies.
Fly. It's
Fantastic.
mad.
Well, we're certainly glad to have you here and being part of the scene for sure. And so, listen, I wanted to ask you, as I said to you just before we started recording, a lot of our audience may well know you through Snow Poet, which is, a fantastic band and with a few albums out, and everyone should go and check that out, of course. But I wanted to spend a bit of time maybe looking at some of your projects that people might know a bit less about, and looking into the whys and the wherefores of that. And the first one that really caught my eye when I was looking through was Saoirse, which is Freedom. This is a project with Kit Downs and Tom Challenger, who you've worked with in various settings. I wanted to ask about Benedict Taylor, because he's a musician that I'm less familiar with. And what was the thought for starting? So, I mean, you can explain to us about Shanwaz singing and all the rest as well. What spurred this on, and those people then as well, to explore very Irish music, finding not Irish musicians,
Yeah. Well, I think it originally came about because I was having a conversation with Ellen Cranich, who is a wonderful woman in Ireland who was running the Galway Jazz Festival with a number of people in Ireland. And she approached me with the idea of the Galway Jazz Festival commissioning me to research and develop some new music. And Connemara Sean-Nós music, which I had never delved into before myself. So yeah, with kind of, it seemed like a big undertaking, and I was up for the challenge. So I applied for some funding through the Irish Arts Council, and gratefully received, and was awarded the application. And I wanted to work in a kind of small chamber ensemble with improvisers, so that we could collectively kind of focus on folk songs, but be able to improvise around the material and kind of build a collective identity with the music.
Yeah.
And like you were saying, I've been working with Kit and Tom over the last few years in other projects. And I played with Benedict once before at the 100 Years Gallery years ago, and loved his playing. So yeah, we all got together. But that was kind of for the first year, I was researching and learning the music, and I started to get some lessons with an incredible musician and vocalist called Salo Gnichanwan. So she was teaching me songs and repertoire and history and background and pronunciation and phrasing. And we were kind of engaged in Skype lessons, I think, for about a year. So that was incredible to be able to learn from her and just ask her lots of questions and respond vocally. And her teaching was incomparable. It was really gave me a solid foundation. And I'm still learning, and this is the thing, I want to keep on kind of working in this project and developing more performance opportunities, because the first time we played was at the Galway Jazz Festival in October, just gone.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And we played in on Tyviark, which is the Irish language theatre in Galway. And that was the first time that I had sung in Irish for a whole gig and spoken in Irish to an audience. And I was really nervous because we just put all of this work in, and we went to the Tyrone Guthrie Centre in Annaghmacarrick and Monaghan to workshop material for a couple of days, and that was really enjoyable. But yeah, the first live experience was really good fun, but I felt nervous,
Yeah.
But it was great. It was a great performance, and I think the next gig that we have at the moment in the diary is in Cafe Auto in July, this coming July. So given the current circumstances, I'm not sure what's going to happen with that performance, but I'm really looking forward to the next gig. And I think working with the material offers me a new vocal approach for improvising, because having to form new shapes, vowel and consonant sounds in your mouth is going to drive you into new exploratory shapes that you can move into. And it's been a really great learning experience, and being able to delve into my history and my connection with Irish music, and kind of having a voice now, and singing songs that might be 200, 250 years old, and kind of bringing new energy and a new framework around them,
Yeah.
And working with Tom and Kit and Benedict, they're so open to trying new ideas, and collectively they're deep listeners. So we move into a space where response and listening is really part of the performance itself, and it's a collective unit. And I think with any project that I'm involved in, where improvisation is part of the composition itself, that's kind of paramount for me. I'm wanting to work with people who are really interested in developing their listening skills within their playing, Yeah,
for sure. And so I wanted to ask, did you grow up a native Irish speaker, other than the amount you need to do in schools?
Absolutely not. No, I learned Irish in school till my Leaving Cert, so A-level equivalent, and then forgot it all. And then when I started working with Salog again, just starting to memorize sound and to think about sentence structures and slender vowels and broad vowels, and again, because we were looking at Connemara Irish, and I'm from Dublin, so that would be Munster Irish, so it'd be a very different dialect and pronunciation. It was a really new departure for me. But very, very, very enjoyable.
And so how, without trying to answer for them, Kit, Tom and Benedict then obviously say, very open listening musicians, but then in a setting where they're not necessarily going to understand the lyrics that they're interacting with. what
Mm.
what kind of situation does that throw up? Because I'm certainly imagining from any experiences with Tom and Kit, certainly the lyrics would be uh, uh, a source of inspiration, obviously, when you're playing and you want to encapsulate and reflect and interact with that. Have you worked through the meaning of each song with them, and
Yeah, absolutely. No, that was important. That was important for them all, about the meaning of the lyrics and the song story, and who the narrator was and when it was written, and how much information we had about all of the songs. But I think with Tom and Kit, they also play with other vocalists in different languages as well, and they're both interested in contemporary folk practice.
Yeah.
So yeah, the meaning of the text was definitely important. But I suppose the vocal sound comes through the text as well in another way. So it's not just being linguistic, but seeing the voice as the instrument in itself as well.
The other maybe slightly thematically linked project that I wanted to ask about, that is Famished, with the poet Sherry Smith.
Yeah, Sherry Smith. Yeah.
So just could you tell us a little bit about that? Because that sounds like a very hard hitting and quite obviously a very serious and quite heartbreaking subject to work with. How did you find that whole experience, and if you could flesh out what it is for us, please?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I absolutely loved being part of that project, and I originally met Cherry through Romer, the project that I was just talking about a couple of minutes ago, because I was researching poets, and I wanted to work with a living female poet. And when I came across Cherry's work, I immediately identified with how she wrote, and I just thought that I could sing the words and compose with the words. So I originally got in touch with her through that, and Romer, each of us wrote music based on her poetry, and she joined us for one of the performances at the Bray Jazz Festival, which was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So Cherry then got in touch with me a couple of years later and said that she was writing this long form poem called Famished, which was based on the largest migration crisis of the 19th century, which was the famine in Ireland, and how to bring together the idea of collective lament through poetry and song and sound design. So she asked myself and contemporary composer Ed Bennett to work as a trio and to tour the poem through what she would probably call expanded singing, which is what I was doing, and then Ed's sound design from field recordings. So yeah, it was a really great project to be, and we toured the music in parts of Ireland which were very, very much affected by the famine in terms of deaths, but also in terms of language and culture. So in the west and down in the southeast and up in the north. So we went to places like Skibbereen, where the population has never really recovered since the famine. And all of the performances were, they were profoundly moving for me as a performer, because I think a lot of people who were in the audience, I mean, everybody had a connection with the subject. So it was great to be able to work, not as a frontline instrument, but just as another instrument, and being able to try and sculpt and identify sound around her text. And being kind of descriptive, and kind of facilitating the framing of the narrative through her words. So yeah, it was a very engaging and really fun tour, and it was lovely to go to Ireland, and we swam in lakes, and we had some lovely pints in a few pubs, and we had great conversations with audiences after, where we had a Q&A so they could respond to the work. So yeah, I love working with Cherry, and I think we both of our practices developed after working with each other, and I think she really enjoyed being on stage with musicians, and equally I love being on stage with a poet.
Yeah. And so, is there a recording of any of Famished?
Yeah, there is. There is. There's a short extract from a gig on my website and on Cherry's website, but there is a full recording. I need to ask her actually where that's available. But we recorded. We played in Cafe Auto again in March, and we did record the full gig. Yeah.
That's
And
great.
it would be great. I mean, as a radio play, I mean, as not having to watch it, but just to hear it.
Mm-hmm.
I think it would work really well like that. So yeah.
Amazing. Well, look forward to getting the opportunity to hear the whole thing at some point. Fantastic. So to move on then to obviously the reason we're having this conversation is we would have been at the Manchester Jazz Festival. The group that you were coming with is also quite a recent project, if I'm right. So the first track that you've picked out for us is Radical. Sit back and enjoy.
Stake your claim in the woods and the forests. This is where the trees speak. They are telling stories underground, just like us. Interconnecting torsos and infinite affiliation. Internal pressure, external measures to cope with. We exhale water on the warm days. Liquid pulled up and up and out again through a system of slender corridors. Sometimes the water is held. Nothing flows. They communicate through scent, have a way of knowing when to call. Each one states their ground. Their ongoing inquiries into movement, light. Sometimes they rest from growing amongst each other as if to take stock. Even a trunk that's long been dismantled of its habits has a place. Stake your claim in the woods and the forests. This is where the trees speak. They are telling stories underground, just like us.
Fantastic. So that was Radical with the Lauren Kinsella trio. So this is obviously with Tom Challenger, who we've already mentioned before, and who's you've worked with for a long time. Dave Smith is the drummer. And what's your relationship with Dave? How far back have you been working with Dave? Is this a fairly new musical pairing, or is this also something that's been a long time brewing?
Yeah, that's a good question. When have we and Dave played with? Do you know what? I think that the last time that we played together before we started this project was in the Oxford, the night that George Crowley was running for years in Kentish Town, because myself and Laura Jerd were playing a duo set that night, I think, and Dave was playing a set, and then we all played a set together then at the end.
Cool, yeah.
That was really enjoyable. God, that seemed ages ago. So yeah, I've always absolutely loved Dave's playing. He's an incredible musician, and him and Tom work together in so many different outfits, you know, in Fofala and Outhouse, and you know, lots of different projects over the years. So yes, I immediately thought of him because I love working with voice and drums, and I brought out an album on Wide Ear Records in 2009 with a Swiss drummer called Alex Huber, and it's just voice and drums. And I always like working in duos and trios and quartets and small combinations, big combinations too, but small combinations. So yeah, I just thought that the three of us would work well together. Yeah.
So could you tell us a little bit about what the musical ethos of the band, but also the aesthetics of the band in terms of it's very much focused around, you know, ideas of environment and conservation and all of this. So what brought all of that on? And yeah, how did you approach that musically then?
Yeah, I mean, I think I've always been interested in writing about themes in ecology. Even going back to bands like Blue Eyed Hawk, just mentioning Laura, which was a group with Laura and Alex Roth and Corey Dick. And there's a couple of tunes in that album that we made on Edition Records, Oyster Trails and Spiderton. Both of those tunes of mine. And again, it's they're themes of nature and just the wonders of the environment and the importance of identifying with and you know, feeling curious and grateful and joyous at what's around me, you know, and being able to reflect that in music and in my practice. So with Tom and Dave, I'm kind of interested in writing longer pieces where we have a chance to improvise, but we're kind of within quite a defined structure in terms of, you know, what's written in terms of notation and text, and then just building pieces that work within a 20 to 30 minute framework, and each piece having a specific theme. So Radical is just based around trees and the interconnectedness that we have with trees and our relationship with them and their root structures. And for me, when I'm writing text, I hear it in music and I hear it in sound. So it's about the construction of words and finding a place for them, either sung or spoken or deconstructed, and then the musical platform which they have.
Yeah.
And then they can take on their own identity in my composition or in other people's compositions. And that's, for me, that's what's so exciting about improvisation, because every time we play new pieces with Tom and Dave, for example, the performance and the improvisation in the performance adds a new quality of the composition to the work. So every time we play it, you know, we're revisiting how the text is sung, where it's sung, what the notes are, what, you know, we're adding new information onto it all the time. So the pieces are never finished.
Yeah.
And I really like that about composition and about collective identity within compositions, that we're just we're adding more information, and we're just continuing to explore new territory.
I mean, that sort of fits in beautifully with the idea of radical, and that the first root growing and becoming something much greater and changing shape as time goes on.
Exactly, and it's a process, and you know, sometimes the water is held, nothing flows, as in sometimes things are stationary and sometimes things are unmoving in improvisation as well, and we need to let silence and space and we need to let those ideas grow in the music to let it help take shape and form, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
I didn't think about that. Maybe the reading the text, that could be a nice thing to do right now, couldn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Stake your claim in the woods and the forests. This is where the trees speak. They are telling stories underground, just like us. Interconnecting individual torsos, an infinite affiliation. Internal pressure, external measures to cope with. They exhale water on the warm days. Liquid pulled up and out again through a system of slender corridors. Sometimes the water is held, nothing flows. Hums, murmurs, ineffable action of which she asks little in return. They communicate through scent, have a way of knowing when to call. Individuals state their ground, their ongoing inquiries into movement, light. Sometimes they rest from growing amongst each other as if to take stock. Even a trunk that's long been dismantled of its habits has a place. Stake your claim in the woods and the forests. This is where the trees speak.
Beautiful, thank you. And this, I mean, this would open up a whole, you know, 5-hour interview series rather than a short podcast. But you know, in terms of poetry and lyrics, maybe rather than trying to delve into anything too specific, are there some influences that you could cite for people to check out, maybe from poetry, and any poets who've had a marked influence on your lyric writing?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I think if I'm researching for these compositions, I'm not really reading poetry as such. I'm reading more books about topics. So, you know, I was reading The Hidden Life of Trees by Peter Wohlleben, and I was also reading a little bit of One Square Inch of Silence, which is a book by Gordon Hempton, and he's an acoustic ecologist, and he's kind of documenting all of the quiet spaces left on the planet, you know, and where you can be where there's no human interference above land or on ground, and that kind of idea fascinated me. But in terms of writing text, I'm not sure. I mean, I really like listening to instrumental music, as in other instrumental music, while I'm thinking about text for certain pieces, you know, and just working with themes and kind of giving myself a framework and trying to create narrative in that framework.
Yeah.
But all of I keep on going back to themes in nature. I'm not sure why, but every project that I'm involved in, I think it's just part of my identity and practice as a lyricist. There's so much to write about, you know, and so much to learn, and it makes me very curious.
Yeah. Oh, fantastic! And so let's have a listen to the second track that you've picked out for us with the trio. So this, as you said, as you mentioned earlier, is Mochtera,
Yeah.
which made me laugh no end, because that was one of the nicknames my family had for me when I was younger. You'll probably have to do the explaining as to the exact translation, but basically it was because of how savagely I used to attack my food when I was younger.
And are you still like that? Is food a big thing?
Food's definitely a big thing, and I'm quite voracious, but I've managed to restrain myself somewhat while I'm eating it now, at least.
Great, that's a great nickname. Son of the countryside is the literal translation, but it's another name, one of the many words for wolf in Irish. And yeah, it's a great nickname. I like it. At the time that I was writing this piece, Mochtera, I was researching a book by Ciarán Hickey. He's an academic, an Irish academic, and he wrote a book called Wolves in Ireland. And yeah, it just kind of blew my mind thinking about the fact that wolves had been in Ireland for 25,000 years, you know, at least 10,000 years before humans ever arrived and kind of settled there. And just thinking about that environment and, you know, how challenging and difficult and barren and, you know, just what that world might have looked like, just gave me so much, many ideas for, you know, to frame the text.
Amazing. Well, sit back and enjoy Mochtera.
Wow. It's no she loves the love you're free. Carried like a gift delivery with no return. Underneath the darting frequencies moaned and traversed. And above the delicate footwork of a new intent, warmth just for feet, your padded paws probed the land. You made the tracks, relaying the prints and maps for later on. This was an active understanding with the ice. Oh, he til et all fjerde Tundra, aqueous, mirror each other's reds and browns, merging in the white mists, unseen but always heard. On the brightest nights you held the stars in your slow and considered mighty chorus, mother's love cubs in tow, and the lichens and mosses safe under the frozen soil. There is a depth to their quietness. Yal yun, Philip 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 Yal yun. Philip Yallet Jan. Philip Yallet Jan. Philip Yallet Jan. Philip Yallet Jan. Yallet Jan. ground will find you.
Well, so that was Moktira, and Lauren's very kindly offered again to read us through the text for that, so we can hear it clean in isolation.
You arrived on glass shelves, carried like a gift delivery with no return. Underneath, the darting frequencies moaned and traversed, and above, the delicate footwork of new intent. Warmth just for feet, your padded paws probed the land. You made the tracks, relaying the prints and maps for later on. This was an active understanding with the ice. Tundra, ochreous mirror, each other's reds and browns merging in the white mists, unseen but always heard. On the brightest nights, you held the stars in your slow and considered mighty chorus. Mothers, love cubs in tow, and the lichen and mosses safe under the frozen soil. There is a depth to their quietness. Without borders, we coexist undisturbed in our own wilderness. And when we meet again, ours will be of mutual consideration. This time, the ground will find you.
That's really gorgeous. Thank you. I know obviously everyone's intermediate future plans are very up in the air, and it's difficult to say, but are there any new projects that you're working on at the moment? Any new things with existing projects? What has the future got in store for you?
Well, I think at the moment I'm working on writing more music for the trio with Tom and Dave.
Great.
And that's going to keep me busy, because I think at the back of my mind I wanted to write 10 pieces, and kind of be able to interchange them, and when we perform we can kind of take bits and bobs of lots of the pieces. So I'm working away on that. And another project that I love being involved in at the moment is Skilla with it's Ruth Gollard's project, with myself and a brilliant vocalist called Alice Grant, and it's an absolute joy to sing Ruth's music, and we've been playing some concerts, and she's been writing more music, and it's been great, challenging and very satisfying, to get to know her music more. So who knows? Hopefully we will be able to perform more of her music at some stage. But for the meantime, I'll be continuing to be grateful for being able to stay at home and to work from home. And that's where I am at the moment. Yeah.
Absolutely. And with that then in mind, have you got anything that you'd like to share with the audience? Any thoughts you've been having on life and existence at the moment, or just anything you've been enjoying? Any artistic things you've been checking out? Anything entertainment wise that's just been you've been enjoying?
Oh well, I mean, many things. I think I have been able to check out new music, which is great. And I think at the moment people are exchanging favorite albums and at the moment online, and it's been nice to be part of that. So what have I been enjoying? I've been really enjoying Max de Wardener's new album with Kit Downs, music for detuned pianos. I'm not sure if you've heard that. It's really amazing. And I was really enjoying Charlie Hayden and Paul Motion etudes there the other day too. And also Wood River and Charlotte Grieve with Simon German and Keishka Mitsuno. It's a new album by Charlotte Grieve. They're all based in New York, and it's great writing and playing.
you've got a nice little list there to go and check out, myself included. So look forward to that. Well, listen, Lauren, thank you so much for your time today. It's been a real pleasure to chat to you, and yeah, we really hope to see you back up in Manchester soon. So keep well until then. All the best.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye. Hello again, NQ Jazz fans. Thanks so much for taking the time to check out the podcast today with Lauren. Of course, a huge thank you to Lauren for taking her time to join us. It was a massive pleasure chatting to her about all of her music. Please head over to Lauren's website to check out all of her releases. Please head over to patreon.com/NQJazz to check out all of our digital program. And we hope to see you again tomorrow when I'll be chatting to the incredible saxophonist Soweto Kinch. We hope to see you then. Bye-bye.